So, welcome everyone, and thank you for coming to our event about LNG as an accessible fuel. This morning, we will be looking at why LNG is currently the best option on the market for existing vessels to cut emissions, and also how LNG can be accessed practically by the industry. So, we will shortly introduce our speakers for the event and watch their presentations, and afterwards there will be a short Q&A session for anyone who has questions. At this point, I would like to say, if you do have the chat facility, can you put your questions in there for us, please? Now, without any more delay, I would like to introduce Liangwei Xie, Managing Director at Newport Shipping, and Turgai Kolak, Head of Research and Development at Newport Shipping. And today, we would also like to introduce one of our special guests with us, which is Frank Hartvelt, which is General Manager and Sales and Strategic Development, Fuel Gas Supply Systems from WÄRTSILÄ Marine Power, to explain further about the practical applications and the pathway of LNG. So, Xie, over to you.
Thank you, Sam. Let me share my screen now. You seeing okay?
Can you maximize that set? Brilliant.
Yep. Is it okay now?
Yep, that's good. We can see.
Okay. Thank you, everyone, for joining. And we are very glad to have the chance to share our idea and thoughts about vessel retrofitting, and with special focus on LNG as fuel option. So for those of you who might not know Newport Shipping, just a brief introduction about ourselves. We are a turnkey service provider for ship repair and retrofit, and we are a UK company. And today we have a global network with partners, including shipyard and suppliers, right now 15 yards around the world. And we offer turnkey service for repair and retrofit or different technologies. So we recently obtained approval in principle, AIP, from DNV and BV for our retrofit concept with LNG for tanker, bulker, and containers. And following the presentation, we are going to give a bit more information on the technical details for our concept. So when it comes to market, when it comes to decarbonization of shipping, right now there are lots of choices. So sometimes it can also be a bit confusing. And when we are talking to our clients, ship owners, the discussion is normally surrounding with a few key points. First is what vessel and what's the fuel option. And second, how to do it. And then how much does it cost? And when it comes to the choice of vessel, we see a lot of activities on the newbuilding side these days, very strong for containers and bulkers and for dual fuel newbuilding. But there'll be a point when the shipyard will get filled up and the price will be very expensive. So we think we have to look at the existing fleet if we want to achieve a meaningful scale for decarbonization. Otherwise, we may end up with a lost generation of vessels which keep running on fuel oil and waiting for the perfect solution to come. So this is why we focus on the existing vessels when it comes to retrofit. We focus on LNG, and apart from the environmental performance, energy performance, and without going into details, one key element is also that LNG is very readily available, and there's already existing infrastructure on supply being built up, and it's being built up around the world. So it's very convenient fuel, and also it's a viable fuel for the foreseeable future, especially viable for the existing fleet, which is a lot. So how to do it? And a retrofit project is smaller than a new building, but it's bigger than normal repair and retrofit project. So it's a multi-party project. We work with the best partners in every field, and so the key thing here is that when every party is an expert in their own field, the execution, when to work together is the key. So for ship owners to have multiple contracts with different partners and shipyard suppliers, they will have to take the consequences if there is cost overrun or delay of one of the chain, and which have impact on the overall project time and cost. So that's why we are offering a turnkey contract towards our client, ship owners. So there's only one contract between us and owners, and we will organize with our partners from the beginning to the end, including design, engineering, the equipment supply, and also we have our shipyard partners, and we have on-site team engineering teams to handle the project. So, for example, we offer the English law contract, and we have guaranteed the yard slots from our yard partners. And last but not least, when it comes to payment, we offer long-term deferred payment up to 5 to 7 years and up to 60% of total contract value, because we understand this is quite a big burden on the ship owner financially. So we're trying to ease a bit of the financial strain on the ship owner. Actually, these days, we are even taking one step further by talking to the charterers to rally the support for our clients, because we understand this is a collective approach if we want to make it right and proper. So this is a bit more about how we handle this commercially and operationally. Next, I will pass on to Guy to talk about the concept of our LNG retrofit. Yes, Turga, please.
Thanks, yeah. Hello, everybody. Welcome aboard. Now I will try to give a brief info about our design that we grant approval in principle from DNV and BV. Our VLCC tanker, Cape-size dry bulk carrier, and 9,500 TEU container vessels conceptual design are based on the statistical data of the existing vessels that we have analyzed very carefully, going through all the trading routes and operational profiles. We tried to come up with optimal technical parameters while balancing the commercial considerations and both designs to make these projects cost-effective also. Can we pass the next slide, please? Here you can see our VLCC concept with respect to the operational profile of a VLCC vessels. A total volume of 14,600 cubic meter LNG capacity is enough to achieve the operational requirements for that vessel. It's an average, but it's based on the statistical research. Since a vessel has a large deck area, which is available for two symmetrical tanks, which have a volume of 2,300 cubic meters. And the average, when we check the existing vessels, 24 megawatts is the average installed engine power, and 14.5 knots is the average speed. So our tank sizing and system sizing is based on these particulars. So then, can we check the next slide, please? Here you can see our study outcome, which is considering only below 10 years old vessels. We group two parts. One is VLCC, the other one is the remaining tankers. Our approval in principle based on the VLCC concept, which is available for ready to start. And you can see the average speeds, average engine loads, and number of vessels. And total around 400 VLCC is potentially possible to convert LNG, and around 600 existing tankers can be converted to LNG. For the next slide, we'll check the Cape-size vessel. Yeah, here you can see on our Cape-size design, since there are too many deck operations, these dry bulk carriers, we cannot use the deck, forward deck, let's say, vessel, instead of forward, we put a single tank at aft. And again, this volume of this tank is based on the statistical data. And we come up with 3,500 cubic meters Type C LNG tank. Next slide, we can see again the table of the existing statistical data of the existing vessels. For Cape size, more than 400 vessels as a potential for LNG, and total bulk carriers more than 2,000 needs to be addressed for LNG, actually potential. Or on next slide, for container vessels, it's slightly different. We have an approach that we use LNG ISO containers on deck, which will be some kind of battery pack. And these containers can be loaded, unloaded during the cargo operation at port. And we got approval in principle from WÄRTSILÄ. On next slide, we can see a conceptual arrangement of the containers. We use the aft deck above the mooring part of the vessel. It will be a module which can be suitably integrated to the existing vessels. So it's based on for 95 TEU container, but the structure will remain same. We can just increase or decrease the container numbers, so we can adapt easily to each container vessels. And on it, you can see how the operation can be handled during the port, where truck loading. Trucks will bring the containers or barges through the sea, the containers to the port, and then by using port cranes, we can load these containers. The only remaining part will be some connections needs to be done on board by crew. On next slide, we can see again the existing vessels for the containers types, and totally we got around 900 vessels can be converted for different sizes, of course, and also more than 200 new building orders can be adaptable to our project. On next slide, we can see our partners all around the world, and now I will hand over to Mr. Frank from WÄRTSILÄ. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Turgay, and I do think actually that Cha, you will need to start off actually my presentation. Yes, there it is. Thank you. First of all, I would like to thank Newport for this opportunity to speak. The topic actually of this presentation is more generic, and it's about the whole decarbonization dilemma. We would like to point out some of the things both on the technological side as well as on the financial side. Can you move to next slide, Cha? So we do have a dilemma. For many decades we are used actually to build new ships. We are aware, we are fully do know actually on what we need to do actually if there is asked for retrofitting a ship. But what the biggest issue at the moment actually is all about actually there is a jungle at the moment of all kind of environmental aspects suddenly showing up within a short time frame of a couple of years. And the biggest question also for many ship owners, what can you expect from me? How should I take the right decisions actually, let's say, finding my way in this jungle, let's say, and make sure that the vessel will be able actually to operate for over the scheduled lifetime of the vessel. At the secondly, of course, there's another aspect with all these additional compliances requirements all related to the environment. you will see that also the competitive arena is different. It becomes different, and even it could be that charterers actually will ask for more strict environmental requirements. Means that you also need to consider actually how to profile actually yourself into this competitive arena. What is very important, of course, if you're talking about a retrofit, where I would like to focus on into this presentation, is how can you secure the vessel lifetime. At the same time, there are lots of different fuels saving technologies being made available. And in parallel, actually, we do see the new fuels showing up. All together, and Ja already explained a bit, actually, we also should be able to finance these kind of retrofits. Next slide, please. So it's obvious that there is no way of return. Climate change is having, on a global base, a very high attention. We are not able anymore to stick our head into the sand, and we need to do something. It's really time to start the energy transition. At the same time, we do see that there are new fuels showing up. People are questioning actually what about the technology of burning these new fuels into, for example, combustion engines. Secondly, of course, what we also do question is what about the infrastructure, and third, also very important, what will be the price for these new fuels. Next slide. When we are focusing a little bit on the retrofitting, the more viable, let's say, retrofitting possibilities, we can think about actually improving the fuel economy of our engines. We can think about our propulsion arrangement. There is wind assist you can think about. So there is a wide portfolio of possibilities to offer you, let's say, a better fuel, to give the vessel a better fuel efficiency. But if you are going in more into the more green fuels, enabling actually a lower carbon footprint for your vessel, you might question yourself which fuel I need to choose for, and what is my charterer expecting from me, or what is the bank expecting from me. Next slide, please. So if we are ending up actually into the discussion on what kind of alternative fuels are at the moment on the radar, this image actually is giving you an impression of the various routes which are today the most common ones under discussion. If you're looking to the upper three, the hydrocarbon route, the ammonia route, and the hydrogen route, you will see actually that these are, let's say, mainly built around three elementary, let's say, molecules. That's giving also a big advantage, let's say, because the more easy the molecule is, the easier it's also to understand on how to combust the fuels into a combustion engines. Interesting to see if we're talking about the hydrocarbon route, where we are talking LNG, especially if you're following the steps from 1 to 4, you can see that already we are now entering into step number 3, where bio-LNG starts replacing the fossil LNG fuel. Followed actually in the further future by synthetic LNG, but that means that also at that time there is need actually for renewable energy sources to produce this synthetic LNG. Certainly, examples actually given like CMA, they are extremely focusing on bio-LNG to scale up actually the volume for that. The liquid routes are also possible routes where you can see that methanol nowadays also is getting more and more attention. Can you go to the next slide, please? So if you are having a look actually at the two engine types we do see on board of the larger ocean-going vessels, we often do see the two-stroke solutions. Looking into the time and actually on the needs of reducing our carbon emissions, we do see in the blue bubbles that there are already quite many different programs actually where we are able to reduce the carbon footprint generated by the combustion engine. Further into the route, we will start informing you, let's say, within the next periods, that we will come up actually with retrofitting possibilities also for two-stroke engines, to LNG, to methanol, and even actually if you're considering actually in a later phase to convert from LNG to methanol or from LNG to ammonia, we will be able to offer such kind of solutions. Next slide, please. About the four-stroke engine, WÄRTSILÄ is having the widest experience on the dual fuel engine combustion technology. We do have a large track record with more than 40 million on the counter. It's a very flexible platform, which means actually that the dual fuel engine is not a difficult eater, but what is important also with all these upcoming new fuels is to have the full understanding on what you are feeding the engine. So you need to have an understanding, let's say, what is the calorific value actually of the energy you're feeding to the engine. And secondly, if you're talking about fuel blends, which we will see showing up into this transition period, it becomes more difficult actually to understand the composition of the fuel, and also to understand actually the energetic value of the fuel. So our preference is moving us actually then into a direction. Next slide, please. To understand actually an optimum performance of the vessel, to lean more, let's say, from a product-oriented delivery to an integrated solution delivery. And that means actually that we can offer you a complete solution in combination with Newport Shipping, which is focusing in principle on the retrofitting itself. As a continuation, we can offer you actually life cycle agreements for the rest actually of the lifetime of the vessel. Next slide, please. The biggest challenge, as I already mentioned, is non-compliance. This is, let's say, the fear of many ship owners. And there are a couple of tools, but also for the charter industry, Poseidon principles and sea cargo charter, where I'm pointing at, which are tools actually supporting the carbon intensity, let's say, of a vessel visible, and also, let's say, to drive actually, let's say, ship owners to get the carbon intensity further down. This is having a lot of benefits, as you can see, for owners, for banks, and also for charterers. I would like to, next slide, please. I would like to put actually two choices actually on the screen here. If you are considering actually, let's say, if you're questioning yourself on how should I continue with my and keep my existing fleet compliant, there are two possibilities. Either you're doing nothing, or you are considering actually to make a capex investment. It might be that on short notice you will lose your competitive advantage. And which means also that you might end up into a stranded asset much faster than you might think. The other alternative would be to think about actually investing actually into improving the efficiency of your vessel, either actually by the more, let's say, possibilities, or even think about actually alternative fuels. But of course, we have to say that if we are talking LNG, this has become already more or less a commodity. So it's a mature technology, it's widely available, there is a quite good picture actually on the pricing actually of this fuel. So in that respect, we do think that LNG certainly should be one of the kickstarters for to start up this energy transition. And there are topics actually, of course, let's say, being going around, which are around methane slip emissions. Be sure that I can be sure that we as an engine manufacturer are we do have highest attention on daily basis to further get down actually topics of emissions like methane slip. Next slide, please. So having a quick look at these choices, if you are refusing, for example, let's say a midlife retrofit, and we are considering actually, let's say, the tools actually being created under Poseidon principles and Sea Cargo Charter, where Sea Cargo Charter is more actually focusing on the transparency actually during operations of the various chartering opportunities. What you will see is actually that if you have a vessel scheduled for a lifetime of 25 years, with all these new actually IMO related requirements and guidelines, let's say, coming in, you will see that there is a likelihood that if you're doing nothing, let's say, in accordance actually to Poseidon principles, you might have actually on rather short notice already a fallout actually of your vessel. Unless, of course, you are deciding to reduce your speed, but that will, of course, have an effect actually on your competitive advantage in the arena actually of shipping cargo. So, next slide. If we are deciding to do something and we are going for optimizing the energy efficiency of the vessel, and then you will suddenly see that you can extend your runway for your vessel. In this case, we're talking about a Capesize bulker by more than 6 years, which brings you basically up to a lifetime, and the more or less estimated lifetime. So what I would like to point out actually, and can you swap over to the next slide, Chira? We are entering quite a difficult world where decisions to be taken are different than decisions we had to take for over the last couple of decades. But what we would like to recommend is, first of all, self-advise in the best way. At the same time, you should follow your intuition, but please be sure that you are defining a very clear roadmap for yourself on how you would like to operate actually your vessel within the next decades or the next years. You should be fully aware actually of understanding the compromises, because for all these new fuels, it's unavoidable that you need to do compromises, whether it will be loss of cargo volume or it will be loss of dead weight. It can degrade also your vessel endurance, time between bunkering, etc. So there are many compromises that needs to be considered. The biggest pitfall, actually, what we do see at the moment is that many ship owners are still falling back into the traditional way, actually, of building or converting vessels. Be sure that your vessel building spec is reflecting actually this roadmap. Try to avoid actually that it's too open actually, and that you are ending up back into the traditional way actually of ships being built for over the last couple of decades. Finally, it's not a shame actually, let's say, to enter to collaborate. It's not, let's say, for nothing that United Sustainable Development Goals number 17 is all about collaboration. We can't do this all at our own. We need to work together here. And once you made a choice, be alert actually, if you want to change, this might have a big impact. And this was my presentation, and I would like to thank you for your attention, and another time thank you for Newport Shipping for giving us the opportunity to give our view on the future. Thank you.
Well, I'd like to thank Sheer, Turgay and Frank for their presentations. I mean, I hopefully that people watching this, it's maybe answered some of the questions that you have. If you do have any further questions, feel free to get in touch with us. We have a site on the London International Shipping Week website where you'll find our contact details. I am just conscious of time. We have run out of time today. As I say, if you do want to get in touch, feel free. And we will try and answer your questions as best we can. So, guys, thank you to our presenters. I mean, it was great to watch you. And, hopefully we get to see you more again in the future.
Thank you. Thank you, Sam.
Thank you.
Thanks and goodbye, everyone.
Bye-bye.
Goodbye, everyone. Bye.
Bye-bye.